All right, welcome to the third episode of The Town of Warren. You already paid for it, but don't know it. So right now we're starting off with some dates I scribbled on my dry erase board here. And these dates have significant impact what I'm about to discuss. So as you can see, they are Wednesday, September 16, 2015, 9/20/2015, Wednesday, 10/7/2015, 10/8/15, Thursday, 10/8/15 again, Friday, 10/9/15, and Thursday, November 19th, 2015. For the recording, today is July 20, 2017. And so at this point, I will zoom out to the dry erase board here, and I'm going to go over what is on the board right now. So today's discussion is going to be very interesting. And again, I'm going to try and I didn't realize the very first video was going to be an hour and 42 minutes long. So for this third one, I'm going to try and hopefully get this done in a half hour. So at least that's my goal. There's a lot to talk about. This video is going to focus on a few things that Warren residents don't know about. The first thing is the James Gagner, who is a selectman and was a selectman back at these dates and still currently is. He basically, him and I got in a verbal altercation at the Warren Senior Center, and he basically, simple version to spit it out, is he headbutted me in the face, which is assault and battery. Not many residents in town know of that. Some of you know of it. Some of you that might know of it were told it's not true, but I'm going to expose here the records proving that the assault and battery was true and correct, and that employees from the Warren Police Department falsified the police report. There's also ethics issues, there's also conflict of interest issues, and that James Gagner, Sergeant Joseph R. LaFlower, was the one, he was found out during court that he was the one that took care of the police report that I filed against Jim Gagner, pressing criminal charges for the assault and battery, and basically it was Ed Krakowitz, who was a witness, who was also attending the meeting, James Gagner himself, and Sergeant LaFlower, who falsified police records to cover up the assault and battery on myself. Might as well spit this out now too. Also at the same time, during this time, when I was assaulted and headbutted in the face from James Gagner, he was at as a selectman attending a public meeting, which means that he assaulted me on town property and also assaulted and battered me as the capacity of a selectman, making the residents and the town responsible for the criminal assault and battery. So before I get started, I have let's talk a little bit about Joseph R. LaFlower here. So this is May 4, 2015. Again, these are more exciting Facebook stuff that's going to be exposed. So I'm going to expose this to the camera. We're going to start with this little exciting thing first. Okay, so right here is Joseph R. LaFlower's personal Facebook page. As you can see, May 4, and this is 2015. And he updated his profile page, and profile picture, and look what he updated it to. It says James Gagner, Selectman. So obviously Sergeant LaFlower is already hooked in deeply with James Gagner, because you wouldn't basically, and this was right before the election, I believe. James Gagner, Selectman. So this is Joseph LaFlower updating his own Facebook page with Jim Gagner's sign. So that's the first one. And then here is his other profile page. This is also from May 4, 2015. And this little writing up here in the corner, this was evidence in a court case that my attorney and I turned over to against James Gagner and Sergeant LaFlower. And that's why it says page 20 to 23. So these are his, basically these are his friends list right here, and then down here is his own pictures, photos, and then right here circled is James Gagner's signed picture. So that's basically that. So next I'm going to go over what's in the board, and you're saying what's in the board? Well, we're going to explain that right now. So starting here with the first date, okay, because nobody knows what any of these dates mean, and I'm going to explain all of this so now you understand the whole story. Wednesday, 9/16/2015. What was that? Well, the answer is that was a Warren's Citizen Action Committee meeting that I attended. And Warren's Citizens Action Committee is the committee that was founded by James P. Fountain in the town of Warren, and I attended that meeting. That meeting was at 6 p.m. at the Warren Senior Center. At the same time, the town of Warren has a public agenda posting that was under the Selectmen's agenda, and also a Town of Warren public meeting, community development strategy meeting. So it's basically what's called the CDAC, which is the Warren Community Development Advisory Committee, which is almost similar to the to town planning or whatever. So there's the same meeting, different meeting at the Senior Center. This meeting is Wednesday, September 16, 2015, the same date, at 6:30 p.m. So at 6 p.m. I was attending the Warren CAC meeting, which is a private meeting, not a governmental entity, in the back room of the Warren Senior Center. At 6:30, this meeting starts. So this is the public posting right here from the town. This is actually the second page, this one right here. It's another flyer about the Community Development Strategy public meeting. And that's the second page of the two public agenda items. And this one includes the Board of Selectmen attending this CDAC meeting. So what happened is exactly this. So the CAC meeting ended, and when I went to leave in the main area of the Senior Center, I saw this meeting. So I says, well, hey, while I'm here, I might as well sit down. So I sat down, and it was Mr. Dunphy. I forget his first name. I apologize for that. I think it's Christopher Dunphy. But anyhow, I sat down, and he says, oh, well, we have a latecomer. Do you have anything to say? And I says, no, really, I basically said, well, I just missed the meeting. The meeting was almost over, and I was just sitting in the last, 3 or 4 minutes. So I was asked, do I have anything to add, anything to say? And I just said no. And then he recognized me but couldn't remember who I was. So he made a comment. He goes, he says, since you live here, what do you have to say? Well, when that happened, James Gagner had jumped in and corrected, not corrected, but had said a comment to Mr. Dunphy or directly to me and says, he's not a resident, he doesn't live here. And I said, well, I'm a taxpayer. And then he says, whoopee fucking doodah or something like that. So James Gagner made basically a rude statement at a public meeting against me. So Mr. Dunphy didn't say anything. I just says, no, I don't have anything to add. And that's where things now get interesting. So the meeting adjourned. It was over with. And James Gagner was actually talking to Ed Krakowitz, which is another resident from town and a friend of his. And he was on James Gagner, Jim Gagner page. And then he's also currently on Jim Gagner's Facebook pages as well, so they're very good friends. Anyhow, moving along, is them two left to go outside. So I already knew about that anti-Mike Baril hate website, michaelbaril.info, and now was an opportunity to talk to James Gagner, see what he knows about the website. So anyhow, the next page here is a Warren Police voluntary statement that I gave because the crap hit the fan when I was outside with James Gagner. So James Gagner is talking to Ed Krakowitz, having a conversation. I'm standing a little ways away, listening to what they're talking about, and James Gagner's, talking about all the crap in town and blaming other people and problems and all this other stuff. So obviously they both realize that I'm waiting to talk to Mr. Gagner. So I proceed to talk to Mr. Gagner and saying, hey, I just want to ask you who owns that website. And he starts laughing right in front of me. And the only people outside is me, Ed Krakowitz, and James Gagner. Everybody else is still inside the building, the senior center. So I just asked him a simple question, and he starts making these rude comments to me, saying, I don't know who owns it, but he's laughing at the same time. Oh, I'd love to give them all the money in the world, whoever owns it, blah, 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 blah. So I'm still standing probably 20, 30, 40 feet away, some distance away, not extremely close. And basically he just goes off the deep end because he doesn't like me asking him questions on town property and his capacity as a selectman, because heaven forbid I've already been to selectmen's meetings and tried to ask, at a meeting by raising my hand saying, hey, who owns that hate website that has all the death threats against me? And Dario Nardi, he's already said, oh, you can't talk about that because it's it has nothing to do with the town. It's a private matter or whatever. So be it. Doesn't answer anything. So he ends up getting. So I'm not going to read my police report. So he ends up getting mad, and then he starts again going into a temper tantrum because he has anger management problems, just like Chief Spiewakowski does. So 2 peas in a pod. What do you expect? So anyhow, he charges me from 20 to 30 feet away, like running fast, and he stops maybe a few feet in front of me as I'm just, trying to explain the story here in simple terms. And he stops a few feet away. And then when he stops, he's probably maybe a foot away from my face. And he basically, I didn't read the paperwork because it's been a while, but, so he basically tells me to go fuck myself or go fuck off or something. But when he does that, he then leans forward like this, and he whacks his forehead against my nose and my forehead, headbutting me in the face, and as he's screaming, some spit's coming onto my face. Now, when he charged me, I had no time to react because it was so quick, so I just stood there. It's not like I ran backwards or whatever, but he headbutted me. So that's assault and battery. So when he did that, Ed Krakowitz ran over to him and grabbed him by the shirt and says, enough, and then pulled him away from me, and then he continued to shout obscenities. So when I saw this anger outburst, that obviously proved to me that he obviously had something to do with the website, that it pushed his buttons asking him, who owns the website? You know who owns it. Just tell me who owns it. I want to know. And obviously, look at what happened. So let me continue on here. So I went to Warren Police on that night. Okay, so after the meeting's over, which it's over maybe like 7:30, maybe 8 o'clock, something like that. I guess it was a little while. So anyhow, at, let's see, my own paperwork is, let me just look at the time. So anyhow, so Warren Police, I go in there and I complain to the dispatcher I want to file assault and battery charges, and I want to file a police report. So I had to wait 15 to 20 minutes, heaven forbid, for Sergeant LaFlower to show up from patrolling or wherever he was hiding around town. So he finally comes in, and the dispatcher gives me this piece of paper, which is a Warren Police voluntary statement, as I said. So I fill this out, and I mark the time. It's 9:10 p.m. 21:10, yeah, 9:10 p.m. And and so I fill this out, okay? And I basically list briefly what had happened, okay? The next page here is Sergeant LaFlower, the following, that night, had contacted Ed Krakowitz and asked him to fill out a statement. So Ed Krakowitz filled out a voluntary statement as well, and here it is, and as I said, I'm not going to read it. And then he even states about Mr. Dunphy, about the stuff, the trashy stuff that was said to me. And then he also writes Mr. Gagner told Mr. Baril that he was only busting on him about his residency comments and nasty and rude comments. Yeah, sure, like I believe that in 2 seconds. And then it says, Mr. Gagner stated which website. And Mr. Baril replied, says, oh, yours. Oh, I knew I should shake his hand. Mr. Baril then asked the same question again, and Mr. Gagner did not respond this time. Well, I guess that answers my question, is what I said, because I could tell by his demeanor and me probing who owns it. Obviously, he pushed his buttons that he had something to do with the website, and it obviously, so then I made that comment back. So anyhow, so we're going to move on. So that is what happened on, oh, so I got one more thing. Okay, so this is on 9/17/2015 that Ed Krakowitz filled out his statement. Over here, this piece of paper right here, this is not a voluntary statement. This is typed on a computer and hand-delivered to Warren Police, and it's James A. Gagner Jr.'s statement, who he writes in similar stuff, saying that, now Mr. Gagner, this is a statement of an affidavit to Warren Police, okay? And I didn't bother reading you my statement, I just read little teeny bits of his, but I'm going to go over this more in detail because I'm going to explain what happened in the court case. So in Mr. Gagner's own statement to Sergeant LaFlower to Warren Police, which is an affidavit now, and he signed it because there's a signature, he says, he claims that I said, who owns the fucking website? Well, it turns out I didn't say who owns the effing website. I says, who owns the website? But he added a few F words in there to make it look like I was verbally, swearing at him. But anyhow, so I'm not going to get into this. So now we go to this next date right here, which is September 20, 2015, and I just discussed 9/16/2015. So what happens on 9/20/15? Well, there's not a piece of paper up here for it, but I'm going to explain to you what happened. 9/20/15 is when I go to the Warren Police Department. So what happened is I filed this piece of paper. I asked for assault and battery charges on James Gagner. Warren Police, Sergeant LaFlower that is, nobody else, because he was the only officer, and I filled this out right in front of the dispatcher and Sergeant LaFlower and turned it in. And I had to beg Sergeant LaFlower to give me a copy of that because he didn't want that piece of paper getting out. So that's how I have a copy of it. So he gave me a copy and I left. I asked him, well, before I left, I says, what's the police report number, incident number for the assault and battery on James Gagner? His reply was, oh, I'm not putting this in the computer. This needs to be investigated first before we put it in the computer. So I was given no piece of paper from Warren Police that any police report number, nothing. Because what would he be doing? He would be putting James Gagner as a suspect of an assault and battery who's a current selectman in the computer system. So of course he doesn't want that. So I walk out of there with a piece of paper. So 9/20/15, I go back armed with my cell phone and video, and I videoed the entire encounter inside the Warren Police Department, and I videoed the dispatcher, I videoed Sergeant LaFlower, and I asked him on video, where's the police report number? He says, oh, well, we still have to, excuses, and then finally he comes back and hands me this piece of paper. Okay, this is his own writing. There's the call number, and then there is the incident number. Now, I don't know if he created this that night, whether he created it 4 days later magically, or what it is. As I said, this is his own writing, and he handed me this little piece of paper that I'm holding right here. And then that's how I got the information. Now, at the same time in the video of me videotaping him, I asked him, I says, you wanted James Gagner to win, and plus you said trashy stuff to me on your Facebook page, to Jim Gagner's Facebook page, so I don't think that you should be investigating the assault and battery because are you going to charge your own friend? Is basically what I was explaining to him. So he assured me on video, and that video is being used to prosecute James Gagner, Sergeant LaFlower, and the Chief of Police in falsifying police reports and records, because he admitted to me on video that he would not be involved in the investigation. He agreed with me it would be an ethical issue. He agreed with me it would not be right in the best interest of being unbiased. So I don't need to show the video. That's why that date has an importance. So the next thing we're going to go to is 10/8/2015. So that's a Thursday. It's also the same date right here. So on Thursday, 10/8/2000. Okay, I could back up a step. So right here. So the next action that happened in the town of Warren. Now I'm going to prove to you how, as I said, I did this on the video. So, well, maybe I should be doing this on the video. But now I'm going to prove to you the Warren Police and Uxbridge Police connection. So on 10/7/2015 right here, I attend the CAC meeting, which is a Wednesday. And I wrote the word right here, would police snitch? Well, that's exactly what happened. So I'm at the CAC meeting, and I expose the assault and battery of James Gagner. And at this point in time, I only have the piece of paper that I have. I have no other records. I don't even have Ed Krakowitz's statement. I do have this, which I brought this. I remember I brought it with me. And I discussed it at the CAC meeting. But what happened is things took a turn for the worse for me, because what happened is I had met with my lawyer maybe a week prior to this date, in between the other date, and we were discussing filing a harassment prevention order on James Gagner, Chief Spiewakowski, Sergeant LaFlower, and I think one or two other police officers, and there was one selectman that was named in this discussion at that point in time in 2015. And the police snitch here refers to none other than James P. Fountain, because what happened is I mentioned this with myself, Jim Fountain, another resident who's a friend of mine and is not a friend of the police department, and another resident. And I already interviewed the woman who was my friend, and I interviewed the other person, and neither of them said anything to the Warren Police Department, to Chief Spiewakowski. So the only one left in that situation is James P. Fountain. So that's why it says police snitch here. So now we're going to move on with the story. So I explained at that meeting that I had proof that James Gagner headbutted me in the face, and that I was basically admitting that the police department was going to, through Sergeant LaFlower and the chief of police, were going to cover up the assault and battery on me, and that I was planning my next move on seeking criminal action against them. So that's where we now jump to Thursday, 10/8/2015. So on that particular day, and the same thing, I'll zoom in all this paperwork after. So my business phone number, which is a toll-free number and a Warren phone number, landline number, Verizon number, was phone called by Uxbridge Police, 508-278-7755, which is the Uxbridge Police business line, on Thursday, 10/8/15 and 11:11 in the morning. And a voicemail was left to me that was 9 seconds long, and it was Uxbridge Police Officer Josiah Morissette, who I said in the very first video was the Uxbridge police officer that was criminally harassing me about the Warren election stuff in the beginning of 2015. So he's calling me and leaves a 9-second voicemail on a recorded line, which obviously the voicemail is also obviously recorded when he left it, and wanting me to call Uxbridge Police. As soon as I received that phone call, I automatically knew what was going on, because I had no faith that what I discussed the night before had already been leaked to Uxbridge, but I didn't know the extent of what was going to happen. So let me move on. Next thing is Uxbridge Police again, now calls at 2:59 p.m. the same day, Thursday, and leaves a 10-second voicemail, again, obviously recorded. So you're going to say, okay, well, what does all this mean? Well, here's exactly what happened. So, Thursday, I was actually in Warren for 4, 5, 6, maybe 5, 6 hours. It was several hours, I remember that. In Warren, actually videotaping a Board of Health meeting and another meeting at 2 or 3 p.m. as I recall. So I was there at least from, I think, 11 in the morning. No, I was there, I think I was there for 10 a.m. I had some errands to do in Warren. And then I was there, I think, till like 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. It was several hours, as I said. But anyhow, I was there most of the day. So I was not able to take these calls, but I was notified that Uxbridge police had called, because obviously I recognized the phone number. So it wasn't until the following morning, Friday morning, so now we go to the next day, Friday, October 9, 2015, that I finally get a hold of Uxbridge police, Officer Morissette playing phone tag, and he basically says, you need to come down to the station, we have to talk. We have some concerns over James Gagner. And I says, are you shitting me? Maybe I didn't use those exact words, but I says, well, wait a second. And I says, what does Uxbridge police have to do with Warren police? And he says, I can't explain it. It's so secretive, blah, 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 blah. So I video recorded that conversation with Officer Morissette, and he won't tell me anything. Heaven forbid, it's secret police work now. Won't tell me anything about what's going on. And finally he admits, oh, this has to do with your license to carry your firearm, has to do with Warren Selectmen, it has to do with the Warren Chief of Police, and all these other problems. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, so as soon as I heard that, I knew that Warren and Uxbridge were immediately connected, and funny shit was going on. So anyhow, I ended up going down, I think it was like 12:10 p.m. on now Friday, 10/9/15 is when I actually went to Uxbridge Police, and it was explained to me on the phone. I says, what happened is it took me 2 hours to go to Uxbridge Police, and the reason why is because my lawyer was not available that I was using, so I had to call another lawyer, which was a friend of his lawyer, and he was at court. Then I called another friend of another lawyer. So I ended up calling 2 or 3 lawyers because I wanted a lawyer to represent me, because heaven forbid I was being criticized, saying, oh, you have to come down to the station, we want to talk to you, and I kept saying, what's it about? And he wouldn't tell me. So I says, well, screw this. I'm not going to go to Uxbridge Police and sit in a room and talk by myself, because at that point in time you don't trust what they're going to ask you. So it turns out I ended up finding out that I couldn't get a lawyer involved. So I says, well, whatever, I'm going to videotape it. So at least if something happens, it's videotaped. And I end up finding out from Uxbridge Police, oh no, we're gonna bring you in the interview and we're gonna videotape you. And I says, well, why do you need to videotape me? Is this an interrogation? Am I under arrest? Or am I a wanted felon or suspect or something? No answer to that question, but oh no, we just want to videotape you because we have questions for you. And I was like, all right, so whatever. So anyhow, so I end up going down there, and I videotaped it with my phone, and then they also videotaped it, and they gave me a copy of the DVD. Well, the situation that you're all waiting for the magical answer is I was accused by James Gagner, Chief Spiewakowski, as far as I know, those two, accused of threatening to shoot or to do bodily harm to James Gagner. And I was just like, okay, where the hell did this come from? There were never any threats. There's no police report of threats. Nothing. So I ended up getting down there, and in front of Uxbridge Police, they show me this piece of paper, which actually I have right here. This piece of paper here from the state police. And it turns out, so my first question to Uxbridge Police is, why am I here and what's it about? So I'm immediately told by the Uxbridge Chief of Police and Officer Morissette in this interview, oh, we received information from Chief Spiewakowski. He called us and sent us a fax and did this and did that. And I was like, when? And he goes, oh, Thursday morning. Well, I just explained to you that Wednesday night I was at the Warren CAC meeting where I said I was working on criminal activity or working on criminal charges against Chief Spiewakowski and James Gagner. So how is it that Uxbridge Police is calling me the following morning because Chief Spiewakowski had already sent him and faxed him the information and says, oh no, he did this, he did that. So in other words, Uxbridge Police was questioning me on statements that Chief Spiewakowski and Sergeant LaFlower, either combined or one of the two, or maybe not Sergeant LaFlower, I don't know, had told the Uxbridge Police Department. So I was being interrogated because they said stuff to Uxbridge Police, and Uxbridge Police supposedly had a concern about it. So by 11:11 the next morning, after I explained that my lawyer and I were coming after James Gagner and the Chief of Police and Sergeant LaFlower, magically Uxbridge Police wants to talk to me by 11:11 the next morning. And that information was faxed over at 8 or 9 in the morning and allowed this to brew, and next you know Uxbridge Police is trying to hunt me down. So I get at the Uxbridge Police meeting and they show me this log entry and they ask me to explain it. Well, I had no idea the state police had a log entry on me because the state police told me they weren't doing the log entry. So anyhow, so I read the log entry and I go, and basically I said, well, that's not true. And they said, well, how do you know that? And I said, because I went to State Police Sturbridge and reported the assault and battery of James Gagner hitting me in the face. And then this report from the state police guy that I went to speak with to file criminal charges because I didn't feel comfortable with Warren Police that night that I went to see him, I drove immediately to State Police Sturbridge because Sturbridge handles the town of Warren. And I know what I told the state trooper, but this doesn't say what I told him. This says other stuff where it talks about all these other things. And I was just like, are you shitting me? And I said to Uxbridge Police in the video recording, I didn't say this stuff. So I told them what I said, what we discussed, and I was in and out in 2 minutes. And I says, plus this state police log entry doesn't have a state police trooper's name. It's redacted and missing from the report. It does say that somebody came in to report an assault. Well, that's very funny. You didn't discuss the assault in James Gagner, but you put the stuff about guns and everything else in here. I guess I take that back. So it does say that he entered the barracks to report that he was assaulted by a selectman in Warren, and that Warren Police refused to provide him a report of investigation number, which is a true statement. Baril requested that we start an investigation, that we make a log entry note. Now, when I left there after 3.5 minutes, I never told him my name. I didn't tell him anything, and I told him that I was bullied by the selectmen, which is a true statement in there, and I made no discussion of Warren Police, Sergeant LaFlower, or anything. And so what ended up happening is he now has the log entry at 10:44 p.m. Well, it turns out this log entry was over an hour and a half after I'd already left the facility. So the trooper who put this in the log entry told me, one, he wasn't doing a log entry because he says, well, we don't get involved in Warren politics or problems. And he says, you need to go back to Warren Police and deal with them. So he told me he was doing nothing in the computer. And then all of a sudden I find this out on Friday, 10/9/15. And it has my name, my address, my date of birth in here, and I never provided my identity to him. So here's where this is going. So anyhow, so that's that piece of paper. And then another state police piece of paper. It does show Wednesday, September 16, 2015, and it says, now a different time now, in a different log entry, in a different format, 10:32 p.m. assault, but the entire paperwork is blank. As you can see right there, assault, and there's nothing there. So he doesn't list, I told him it was James Gagner, so he knew James Gagner's name, because he might not know who he is personally, but I mentioned his name. So there's no state police report on James Gagner, heaven forbid, and they told me they weren't doing anything. So Uxbridge Police now is then totally baffled But I tell him, and I says, I was there, I know what I said. And I says, that's not a true statement. So I explained, and I says, I didn't threaten anybody. And I says, the trooper was the one that asked me, do I have a license to carry? And I said, yes. And we had a brief, probably 20-second, 30-second discussion about firearms. And then he asked if I had a mace permit. I said, no. And I says, I don't have mace or whatever. And that was it. And then I left because they weren't doing anything. And so here's where this gets more interesting. So now we're going to move on quickly. So, all right. So I guess we'll go on to the next step. So, so as I said, so I'm going to go over this paperwork. And this is all right. So there's the log entry I have. Here's the Uxbridge. The Warren Police voluntary statement for me. Okay. Now here's something stupid that James Gagner and Mark Chase did that was really, really, really stupid, and shows that that they should be liable, including the town of Warren. So the assault and battery took place on Wednesday, 9/16. Okay, this is the day after. Then this is the date when on 9/17 when James Gagner and Ed Krakowitz turned in their statements, their affidavits to Warren Police, that the michaelbaril.info website changes. Okay, so here's the website change on 9/17/15 at 9:56 p.m. You can see right there, 9:50. Move my finger here. And right here, michaelbaril.info. And then, now this is after Jim Gagner assaulted me the night before, and magically the website changes completely to what was there before to a totally new screen. Everything's all erased. The menu items are gone, and it has this nasty little. It has a like a Marine guy sitting with a helmet in almost like he's a prisoner of war in this room. Okay, and I'm going to read you what this content says. Okay, the content now says, you were told to cut the shit, but you just kept pushing and pushing. When will you learn? What will it take? ? It's the combination of dampness and stale air in the mommy and daddy's basement infecting your little brain? ? Are you sick and delusional? ? Maybe you are just an idiot like everyone thinks you are, but I'm not buying it. I think you weren't giving enough love as a child and developed into a sociopath who seeks negative human interaction as some sort of warped love. Negative attention is better than no attention at all. Maybe? ? Maybe you should seek professional help. And down here in the bottom, okay, so here's a guy in a gas mask. So this website is now, I don't know what it's insisting to me. Obviously, who knows, it wants to be gassed or dead or who knows, whatever. Another picture, and then another guy in a gas mask of an old war video. Oh yeah, and then it also says copyright Michael Baril, which I'm Michael Baril, which I didn't copyright, protect my own website because it's not my website. All rights reserved. So, and that was reported to Uxbridge Police, this information, and this was actually turned into Uxbridge Police, showing that the website changed after Jim Gagner had assaulted and battered me by headbutting me in the face. All right, so what ends up happening now is I leave Uxbridge Police. Uxbridge Police says, all right, well, we're good, there's no threat here, and obviously things didn't go their way. Not saying they were bad, not saying they were good, but they just seemed puzzled. So obviously, because Chief Spiewakowski had said this much had happened, and now they realized that there was zero that happened, and I explained that there were no issues, nobody was threatened, and that the state trooper asked me those questions about the license to carry and firearm. He initiated the conversation, and I told them at the same time that the other stuff in the content of the state police records were not true, but I didn't know the other half of the story. So here's what happens next, is Uxbridge Chief of Police says, all right, well, I'll have an officer swing down in a little while, and I'll bring you a copy of the DVD so you have it for your records. So I think it was 4:30 p.m., somewhere around there. Uxbridge police show up at my house. The officer says, "Oh, I have the envelope for you of the DVD from the chief," and the chief wrote Michael Baril on it. I have that envelope here. It has his own writing on it. Get the DVD, and he says, "Well, I have something else for you." And I said, "What is that?" And I'm served by Uxbridge Police a harassment prevention order from James Gagner to Mike Baril. And I'm like, "Are you shitting me?" I says, "How the heck can this be?" And so what ended up happening was, the short 1-minute version is the Uxbridge Chief of Police, or Officer Morissette, notified Warren Police and said, "We talked to Baril, there's no issues, and oh, by the way, your story doesn't match what Baril told us." And Baril has records, and he has the assault and battery report. Now, Uxbridge Police was not aware that Jim Gagner had headbutted me in the face prior to this meeting. So it was me that told Uxbridge Police that Jim Gagner assaulted me, and Uxbridge Police says, "Oh, well, Chief Spiewakowski left that out." Well, no shit, because Chief Spiewakowski lied to Uxbridge Police to get Uxbridge Police to do the dirty work for them, to harass me, which they did, and in turn finds out that it was not true to begin with. And there's more that I'm going to expose in a minute. So I'm served with a harassment prevention order that that I just said to James P. Fountain's face 2 days before this, that I told him my lawyer was coming after these Warren people, these Warren public officials, criminally. Meaning James Gagner and the police and the police officials. And then all of a sudden, this Uxbridge Police crap happens. I'm summoned to Uxbridge Police, and then now you know the story that it was all false and made up. And then I find out this magical document didn't exist, that I had no idea existed, from the state police. And obviously Uxbridge Police believed me because I told them the truth of what I said. And obviously Uxbridge Police realized that this state police officer fabricated the report for Warren Police, which means that a state police trooper fabricated his own police report to benefit Warren Police, to benefit James Gagner, and to kiss ass to Sergeant Joseph LaFlower. And that's the truth. So anyhow, so now I'll go over, so as I said, a lot of stuff to go over. Let me keep, so here's Jim Gagner's court records right here, where he filled it out on Michael Baril, 10/9/2015. I kid you not. There's the date right there. As you can see, 10/9/2015. And wait till I read you the time. I don't know if I got the piece of paper with the time. Let's see. Okay. So right here, so here's the proof. This is the piece of paper, or a copy of the piece of paper, that Uxbridge Police served me. And it's down right here on 10/14/2015. This is Uxbridge Police serving me the piece of paper, police officer. Oh, and then look whose signature it has on it. Elizabeth Munsell. Boy, she must be doing lots of favors for the Warren Police Department at this point in time, or it's the other way around. So anyhow, so we have a court date of 11/9/2015 at 9 a.m. in the morning. And okay, now I'm going to go over that. So one of the things that ends up happening is Joseph A. LaFlower, the son, is magically, here's his timesheet, is magically in East Brookfield Court with me, James Gagner, and my lawyer, and he's there sitting, texting somebody. So I obviously figured out, my lawyer figured out, that he's texting the chief of police, or the town officials in Warren, as our case starts and we're called up there. So here's Jim Gagner on one side, here's my lawyer and I on the other, and he's sitting there texting in court. But we can't have a phone in there, and he's texting away for the whole thing while the whole discussion's going back and forth. So he's live updating the Warren Police Department on what is happening towards me. And look what he does, okay? We were in and out, a few hours or whatever, but he submits a timesheet for Thursday, the 19th of November at 8:30 in the morning till 11:30 a.m. And he lists that it's a 4 hours of first shift hours, and heaven forbid 4 hours of court time pay, 4 hours minimum of court time pay, and he was paid for being in the court by our taxpayer money, your taxpayer money, to report to the Warren town officials and the police chief live as the case is going on of me and Jim Gagner. And heaven forbid that the 4 hours of court time that he put in for, because it exceeded the 40 hours, he got that 4 hours of overtime. So he got court pay plus 4 hours of overtime just to waste our taxpayer money to report to Chief Spiewakowski while we're live in court. Okay, so next thing is, that's a shocker, is Jim Gagner starts in the court case. And now we've jumped ahead to these documents here. So this document here, which I'm laughing as I can't stop laughing, is Sergeant LaFlower's police report on the assault and battery of James Gagner to Mike Baril. After I videoed him twice, Sergeant LaFlower videoed him twice. Actually, I think there's 2 more videos in between this, but these are the 2 main ones that I specifically asked him if he got involved in this investigation. It's an ethical issue and a blatant conflict of interest issue, and it would create civil lawsuits in the future. And on these 2 dates that I have him on video, he said that he would nothing be involved with the investigation. Okay, so here we are in court on this particular day, on November 19th, and what does James Gagner do, folks? He submits this police report and says it right under oath to the judge. Oh, I have the Warren police report. And my lawyer's like whispering to me, what police report? I went to Warren police, I would say 6 times, asking for a copy of the police report, and I was told nobody has investigated the assault and battery yet. It's probably going to be investigated by the chief, and I just said, well, that's a joke. And come to find out, Sergeant LaFlower had this filled out the following day and concluded, well, I'm going to read several excerpts of this, and concluded that no assault and battery existed. So obviously, I just proved to you that James Gagner and Sergeant LaFlower were campaign people, because remember, Sergeant LaFlower was on Jim Gagner's campaign, and obviously if you're friends like this, or friends with benefits, whatever the right word is, that he says to me all those times, oh no, I can't get involved, that you're right, that I would be committing a crime. Well, hello, jackass, you just committed a crime. So not only was he stupid enough to falsify his own police report, Jim Gagner publicly says under oath, well, I have Sergeant LaFlower's police report. My lawyer and I are like laughing in the chair going, are you shitting me? You know, you have to be the biggest police sergeant jackass to say, gee, I shouldn't have done this. So now I'm going to read you the stupid shit in his police report. So in this police report, as I said, I still got a lot to go over, so he says, I later contacted Ed Krakowitz via telephone. This is that night of the assault and battery, the Wednesday night, and spoke with him about what he witnessed. He stated at no time that Gagner touched or threatened Mr. Baril. Okay, well, I'm going to disprove that in a minute. So then he says, at 10:40 p.m., which I just read you the state police records of 10:44 p.m., on the same day, I was contacted by Trooper Figueredo of the State Police Barracks C5 Sturbridge, who reported to me that Michael Baril had entered the barracks at 10:40 p.m., which is not the correct time I was there. So the state police trooper says that I came in an hour and a half after I was really there, and I have the cell phone records to prove it, that he wanted to log that he was assaulted in Warren by the selectmen. Baril told the trooper that Warren PD had refused to provide him with a police report or investigative number, which is true because Sergeant LaFlower refused to put anything in the computer then. Baril requested that the state police start an investigation and make a log entry note. Then Sergeant LaFlower says in his own report, "It should be noted here that Mr. Baril never asked me to supply him with any investigation number or report at the time of the reporting of the incident or any time thereafter he submitted his written statement." So in other words, I'm just going to the police department to report a crime, but I don't want any proof that I reported it. Mr. Baril was advised by me that he would investigate the matter and contact him upon the conclusion of the investigation as to the outcome. Okay, so I just read you that paper. Oh, okay, so, all right. So then there's all police report now. It says, this is Sergeant LaFlower now. You're a police sergeant who can't get his facts straight and has to lie to protect Jim Gagner's ass here. Gagner states that he turned towards Baril, took one step forward and told Baril, quote, "Get the fuck out of his face." So Sergeant LaFlower is putting in his own report that Jim Gagner said, "Get the fuck out of my face." And it turns out he's the one that came into my face. So again, Sergeant LaFlower and Gagner falsifying the town's police records to make Gagner look like nothing happened. Let's see. Oh yes, and then heaven forbid, Sergeant LaFlower put, quote, "Gagner told Baril he was just busting on him," which, as you said, that was in that report as well. And in no time did Gagner make that statement that he was just busting on me, or just joking. Yeah, sure. That's why you headbutted me in the face, sure. And then the conclusion of the police report that we found out now on 11/19/2015, okay, which is a long time after 9/16, so you're talking 2 months later. I believe at this time that probable cause does not exist to charge Mr. Gagner with assault and battery or assault in violation of Mass General Law, Chapter 265-13 or 13A. So Sergeant LaFlower takes it upon himself to basically say, oh, well, according to all this evidence, no assault and battery existed, after I reported that I was headbutted in the face. Okay, so this next document I'm going to read is just some reading excerpts. This is the funny shit in the town of Warren records. This is the affidavit of myself, Michael Baril, that my attorney had me do. And you're going to love some of these comments. Now, these were under oath at an affidavit, and I signed it, and I have a piece of paper to back up every damn thing that's said in here. So my affidavit, I'm going to have to, as I said, I'm going to zip through this. I have received information from various residents of the town involving improper conduct, harassment, and intimidation from police officers in the town, particularly the chief of police. I have publicly called attention to the chief's improper and unprofessional and violent conduct. This resulted in the assault by the chief on Mike Baril in 2009, which I then reported to the Warren Police Department. However, the police department refused to accept any report against their own chief of police. Multiple residents of the town came forward and told me many stories involving the police, and particularly the chief, and this encouraged me to run for selectman in 2015 in the hope that the chief's contract would not be renewed in 2016. James Gagner, a longtime ally of the police chief, was encouraged to run by the chief to run against Mike Baril for the selectman's post. What I thought would be a simple competition in the political arena became the series of vicious attacks against myself, my campaign, and those who were supporting me. One website created and owned by individuals which harassed both myself and my campaign workers. The other website that harassed Mike Baril as well was masslive.com, owned and operated by the Springfield Republican newspaper. Now, I didn't expose that. Now, that's being exposed that there was a second website that was that I was harassed on. Mr. Gagner was enraged and out of control, continually cursing and screaming to such an extent that his friend had to come over and physically grab him away from me to prevent a further assault. And his friend began cursing at me as well. Well, that would be Ed Krakowitz. Okay. I left the scene of the meeting and went directly to the Warren police station to report the assault. The dispatcher told me to fill out a written statement on the police form, but when Warren Police Sergeant Joseph R. LaFlower read my statement, which is true, he read my statement, then he realized it involved a member of the Board of Selectmen, and he refused then to enter it into the log and refused to give a police report number. Warren Police Sergeant Joseph LaFlower, who took the report, was a public supporter of James Gagner, who slandered me on the public, quote, elect Jim Gagner, end quote, Facebook page, and he also changed his personal Facebook profile picture from himself to Mr. Gagner's election sign, which I showed you already. I knew this conduct was improper, and therefore I then went to the state police in Sturbridge to report the incident. The assault occurred at approximately 8:35 p.m., and I went to the police department at 9 p.m. At approximately 9:15 p.m. I left the state police barracks by 9:45 p.m. and left. I arrived at the state police barracks at 9:45 and left approximately 3 to 5 minutes later. At no time did the trooper ask me to identify myself, and I never had an opportunity to provide him with my name or identification because he simply told me that I should go to court and there was nothing else that he could do for me. Okay, so next page is the affidavit from my criminal attorney who was used in this case. His affidavit says, I further contacted Mr. Gagner through the office of the Board of Selectmen in Warren, in which he is a member, and left a message with the board secretary. She indicated she would transfer the message to Mr. Gagner immediately. And then he also put in his affidavit documentation to the court. This allegation is in retaliation for the assault charge the defendant, meaning me, complained of against Gagner earlier that occurred before witnesses, and Baril should be allowed to be represented. Okay, next page, we already went over that. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the court transcript. So the court transcript is basically going to be the icing on the cake because you're going to love this stuff. And I might as well make a public statement on this video right here. Uxbridge Police, and so Warren residents know, I was at the court hearing. The only witnesses to the court hearing was Joseph A. LaFlower, the son, who was there the whole entire time. James Gagner, myself, and the lawyer. So nobody from Uxbridge Police has ever, or even Warren residents, have never seen the court transcript or the audio recording of what I said. Well, it turns out I didn't even say a word because the lawyer did all the speaking for me. So the lawyer and I were under oath. James Gagner was under oath, and that was it. So nobody has seen this. So other than Mary Belrose spoke at a selectmen's meeting in 2016, I believe, and was waving the court transcript in front of Dario Nardi and James Gagner, and said that there was inappropriate stuff that was said at the East Brookfield court hearing. So now I'm going to expose excerpts of this transcript because this transcript is being used to civilly and criminally prosecute Sergeant LaFlower, James Gagner, Chief Spiewakowski, or Bruce D. Spiewakowski as an individual, and as well as Elizabeth Munsell is also being prosecuted, connected to this. So anyhow, so I'm just going to read what the highlighted stuff because this is as I said, the funny icing on the cake stuff. Okay, so let's see. So the court says to James Gagner, "Is everything that you had written on the original affidavit the truth?" And Mr. Gagner says, "Yes." Next thing, the court. And there have been at least 3 or more events. Mr. Gagner says, "Yep." Mr. Gagner, "So I post on there that, part of the problem comma, not part of the solution. Nobody needs this. Move along. And the court replies, okay, not knowing what the heck he's talking about. Mr. Gagner, exactly. I can tell you, he's got mountains of paperwork. Well, I think I have plenty of paperwork, Mr. Gagner. Okay, here's one icing on the cake. Maybe this gets a candle with a, or maybe it gets 10 candles. So, Mr. Gagner replies to the court under oath. Now, this is all under oath. Okay, it is along the lines of, you roam the halls of the town hall, stirring up whatever it is you try to stir up. You interrupt meetings. Nobody needs this here. Please take this elsewhere. Okay, now, Gagner made that statement under oath in front of the judge in audio recording, and I have the court transcript by the court reporter, on Thursday, 11/19/2015. Well, guess what, folks? Here is the michaelbaril.info website, okay? Here's when the website was edited on 1 January 16, 2016, okay? This is after the court case, and guess exactly what the website says, okay? This is when the website was changed, and here's exactly what I just read to you what James Gagner told the judge, and here's exactly how his own website changed to exactly what he just said. Here is a riddle for Mike. If a cougar roams the halls of a school and the sparrow flies, but only at night, what would the role of the silent mole be? Hint, it all comes back to the author of this site. So if a cougar roams the halls of a school, and this was, as I said, the website was edited on January 16, 2016, and I just read to you that he just used similar wording from November of 2015. Well, it obviously shows that he's in control of the website, because what he said in November ended up on the website in January the following year. Okay, so next thing, moving along. And I look over at Mr. Baril. I'm like, quote, you know, I'm only busting on you, end quote. And he starts on, who owns the website? Now, he said this in court. He didn't say who owns the effing website, but on his statement that he gave to Sergeant LaFlower, it says who owns the effing website. So Gagner doesn't say that in his own statement, so at this point he's telling the truth in court, but he lied on the Warren police paperwork. And then he says, I wish I knew because I'd like to shake their hand. Well, that's funny. You own it, dumbass. And it's also owned by Mark Chase. In his own statement under oath in admission, it's a website that basically does to him what he does to Warren, Uxbridge, Mass State Police. And the court goes, okay. Okay, James Gagner's statement now. I look at him, I say, quote, get the fuck out of my face, end quote. Thank you, James Gagner, for saying that under oath. Funny you didn't put that in your police report, that statement. Mr. Gagner, he went into the Warren Police Department and filed an assault and battery charge against me, saying that our noses touched, end quote. He just said our noses touched. Oh, I'm sorry. He's talking about that. Okay. Sorry. Getting ahead of myself. Next statement, the court goes, okay, Mr. Gagner. Well, when I leaned forward towards him, that like I said, I have copies of it right here. The court says, okay, Mr. Gagner, that he was standing 30 feet away, and I, meaning James Gagner, charged at him at 20 feet, and then our noses touched. Oh, but I did say, oh yes, I charged 20 feet. So James Gagner just admitted under oath that he complained that I went to Warren Police to file an assault and battery charge because our noses touched. Then he says, well, when I leaned forward that and then the next statement is he says, I charged at him at 20 feet and our noses touched. And then he admitted again, I charged at 20 feet. So right there is his own admission under oath in court in front of the judge that he headbutted me in the face. But Sergeant LaFlower put in the report that no assault and battery ever existed. Okay, Mr. Gagner, I also have the police report. It was, oh, there were no findings because basically there was nothing there. So Mr. Gagner is now admitting under oath, oh, Sergeant LaFlower made sure there was nothing there to help me. But he doesn't say that to the judge. Instead, he tells a little white lie and says, oh, the police report said there's no findings. Okay, my criminal attorney. Now, he told me in a conversation he received it from the state police in Sturbridge. Is that correct, sir? Now, this is a statement from my lawyer cross-examining James Gagner. My attorney then says, okay, well, that's funny. You can't get these from the state police in Sturbridge, Your Honor. I had to get it through the state police records department. They don't give it to you at the state police barracks. And the court says, okay. My attorney, that's the first thing wrong with what and how James Gagner got the state police record. My attorney, the second thing is, I made 3 requests to find out the name and identity of who the state trooper was that supposedly wrote this. Court says, okay. My attorney, they wouldn't tell me. They've ignored my request. It doesn't say here who the trooper is. So that statement right there proves that the state police refused to give my attorney the records in my own case of a document that I just found out that magically showed up at Uxbridge Police from the Warren Police Chief because it was faxed over. And James Gagner got it directly, who just admitted under oath that he got it directly from State Police Sturbridge. But it turns out that wasn't the case. It turns out Sergeant LaFlower got it from State Police Sturbridge and then photocopied it and gave it to James Gagner. So Sergeant LaFlower, on a totally separate incident, is now getting fabricated records from the state police and gets it in his possession and then gives it to James Gagner to use to go against me when I didn't fabricate anything. I was the one that found out the records exist, like where did this stuff come from? So right there, Warren Police by Sergeant LaFlower and Chief Spiewakowski is falsifying records for James Gagner to make this harassment prevention order stick. And then now the truth's coming out, and James Gagner admitted all these statements, as I just read to you, proving that the assault and battery legally existed, but legally happened, but, not from Warren Police, heaven forbid. My attorney, we were told the records did not exist, but the selectmen in the town apparently have magical powers connected to the state police. Well, that's part of the second icing on the cake. So the town of Warren Police Department and the selectmen can magically get records from the state police when the state police fabricate the records for Warren Police. But when you have a criminal attorney who goes to the state police and asks for the records, oh, the state police told us they don't exist. We don't know what you're talking about. Boy, really? I mean, this just takes a turn like you wouldn't even know. Let's see. The court. Counsel needs to have a copy of that, referring to my criminal attorney. Okay, so there was a recess. James Gagner had turned in all these records to the judge. The judge then basically had the clerk's office get my attorney the records. So now my attorney has all the records, and now we're going to use the records to prosecute James Gagner and the Warren police for lying. So the case is brought back on, and the judge says, "Reminder: everyone is under oath." Everyone is still under oath. Okay, my attorney. What I'll start out by generally saying is that he, meaning James Gagner, doesn't meet the standard of a harassment prevention order. My attorney then makes another statement. He hasn't met anything at all. Okay, next thing. This is my criminal attorney. Trooper Figueroa claims that as a result that he magically called Sergeant LaFlower out of the blue. I will show that Sergeant LaFlower has a close and virtual intimate relationship from a political point of view with this man, James Gagner. Sergeant LaFlower, I will show evidence that Sergeant LaFlower changed his own Facebook page during the course of this man's campaign for selectman. My attorney, and he put his sign up. They're buddies. LaFlower should have never investigated this. The conflict of interest was very blatant. Let's see. Regarding James Gagner supposedly me harassing him, my attorney says he, meaning James Gagner, is already being taped by someone from the town, a retired fellow from the town, which is Warren Cable Access, who this is referring to. And then he also says the affidavit is very clear. Next thing. Same thing, my criminal attorney. And he admits he made a posting on a website, a nasty, sarcastic posting towards Mr. Baril. And Mr. Baril called the police chief, period. I won't read the rest of the statement, but because it just goes into detail. So basically, my lawyer then says, so that's an instance of harassment of James Gagner towards my client, Mr. Baril. Next thing, my attorney then says, the reason, because it's true. He starts throwing the mud, slinging the bombs, and then when anything pops back at him, meaning James Gagner, he sits and he smirks, as he's doing right now in court, Your Honor. He thinks it's funny. He thinks this is a bleeping joke. Okay, then my attorney then says, if we go through the police report that he himself submitted that we didn't know existed until now, another statement from my attorney says, Mr. Baril said, who owns the website? In his own admission, Mr. Gagner in the police report says who owns the effing website. So again, I didn't say who owns the effing website, but the Warren Police Records says I added the F word in there, and so does James Gagner. So obviously, again, falsification of a police report for the best interest of what James Gagner is going through. The statement from Ed Krakowitz. Mr. Krakowitz saying that Mr. Baril then said, who, quote, who owns the website, end quote. Then he says, Gagner then said, get the fuck out of my face, end quote. So obviously that statement right there showed that Mr. Krakowitz was telling the truth in his affidavit to Warren Police, that I said, who owns the website, and then that Gagner said, get the F out of my face. My attorney, we haven't had anything from this man about Mr. Baril defaming him about any websites. But once he announced to run for selectman based upon the fact that my client wanted to try and stop the renewal of the chief of police's contract, once he did that, the verbal and physical assaults from this man to Mr. Baril were virtually nonstop. Virtually nonstop. And that's a statement from my attorney under oath. Next thing, my attorney. The next line Mr. Gagner doesn't tell Sergeant LaFlower because Mr. Krakowitz says, Gagner said, which site? Oh, yours. Oh, I wish I knew. I'd shake his hand. So Mr. Krakowitz's statement said that when I asked who owns the website, Ed Krakowitz put in his statement referring to, oh, yours, meaning Jim Gagner's website. So obviously that document helped proved, is another way of proving that Ed Krakowitz knew that James Gagner was the owner of the website, meaning yours, and I never said that because I just said to James Gagner, who owns the website? I didn't say, James Gagner, I know you own it, you're lying to me. Next thing, my lawyer then says, Baril then asked again, in your honor, Gagner did not respond. He said nothing. And then Mr. Baril states, well, I guess that answers my question, end quote. Okay, my lawyer. Krakowitz has not said there was any vile discussion, cursing, or anything by Mr. Baril. This man submits Krakowitz's statement as true and accurate representation, and so Mr. Krakowitz now has to live with what he wrote. My lawyer. Krakowitz writes, quote, Mr. Gagner spins around and says to him, get the fuck out of my face, end quote. Your Honor, who assaulted who? They went nose to nose. Mr. Baril didn't move. He moved, meaning James Gagner moved. Why did he do that when all Baril said, well, I guess that answers my question, which then put Mr. Gagner into a violent temper. The only assault that took place here was by Mr. Gagner on my client, Michael Baril. So I think that takes care of the next episode from 9/16. My lawyer, everything I say, I have paperwork to back up, Your Honor. Okay, next thing. Okay, my attorney shows that the assault from the state police record shows that an assault at 2232 was on the 16th. The state police station at 2150. He left 5 minutes later at 2155. My second key point under oath is he never told the trooper who he was. He was there less than 5 minutes. The trooper never asked him who he was either. Well, next statement. Well, yes, I am he said, well, yeah, I am because these people have posted threats to my life on that website. Okay, next statement from my lawyer. He went to Sergeant LaFlower that he knows well, and he said, I told him he knew nothing about it. But his friend, Mr. Ed Krakowitz, says the opposite. He said, oh, which one? Or yours? Or I wish I knew him. I'd shake his hand. Let's see. Also, okay, then it continues on, showing he's got knowledge of the website. It's a website used to threaten and harass my client, Mr. Baril. Next statement. I do, but I just got it back. I never pulled it out because the Warren police, they probably used it in some way to set me up. Another statement from my attorney. The trooper doesn't know who he was because Mr. Baril never identified himself. Another statement, there's a note of assault at 2232. Next statement. LaFlower writes in his report and he states, police report, investigation. LaFlower writes that Trooper Figueroa called him at 2240. Next statement. He put nothing in the log and then put after the phone call with LaFlower at 2244. Poof! He puts in that he asked him about the gun. Next statement from my attorney. Figueroa called LaFlower. Probably he said it was a selectman is the reason why state police called Warren police. Next statement. I'm quiet what Mr. LaFlower said. I'm sorry. And then he gave the trooper his name, meaning Sergeant LaFlower identified me as the assault and battery because I just left there. And now we magically have the state police entry with his name and contact information in there. Mr. Baril was trying to take a complaint from him. Next statement. who by Mr. Quakewood's own sworn affidavit to Warren Police exhibited no violent tendencies at all. The only thing that's being exhibited is a violent tendency, or what I would say are falsehoods put forward by Mr. Gagner for his own political purposes. Your website is a statement. Next statement, everything has come from Gagner to Baril, not the other way around. Looks like last page of the statement. This is from the judge. That basically says to issue a harassment order has not been the issue to order a harassment order has not been met, and therefore I decline to issue the harassment order. The hearing is over. Thank you. And my attorney says, thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And that is the end of that. Okay. So moving right along here, I'm going to go to some Uxbridge, town of Uxbridge records. In Uxbridge, we have a town manager who is basically the one in charge of the town, and then we also obviously have a Board of Selectmen. So I'm going to read you an email. So I just explained to you about what happened in court. I'm now going to explain to you some Uxbridge police stuff connected to Warren Police. So this is to David Genero, the Uxbridge town manager. This email, I'll show you this. This is from right here. Oops, right here. So it's the date on this is Wednesday, February 15, 2017. That's this year at 2:22 p.m. And it's David Genero. So Dave, here's my update. After doing some thinking from the last time I spoke to you, Chief Laurie, which is the police chief here in Uxbridge, stated some things to me outside your office, and I then told you that he wanted to, quote, work something out, end quote, with him by talking. After leaving and thinking about what he just admitted to me was very disturbing. This all goes back to my original complaint that I had complained about. The short version is he stated, now this is referring to Uxbridge Police Jeffrey A. Laurie, okay? Short version, he stated, number one, he was upset that I publicly said I wanted him fired, and the residents were asking him questions about what happened between the police department and Michael Baril. Number two, I quote, Mike, you were never in danger of being harmed. I would never let anything happen to you. It got out of control. The DA also said he had no concerns about your safety, end quote. So this type of statement disturbs me. It tells me that Chief Laurie in Uxbridge is so clueless to what he got himself into. He also made a statement about Officer Morissette, something to the effect that he did not make certain comments that I stated at the past Board of Uxbridge Selectmen's meeting, and that he has those recordings. I then said Officer Morissette did not inform me that you were audio recording me any of those times when he called me. The chief didn't address a reply to that. Number three, he said he would provide me copies of records of communication between himself, Officer Morissette, and Warren Police Chief Bruce Spiewakowski. Though the story has changed when he said that there are no cell phone text messages between Uxbridge and Warren, that he simply got a fax and a phone call, etc. I'm sorry, but I don't believe it was one or two phone calls and one fax was the only correspondence between Uxbridge Police and Warren Police for the 12 months or so going backwards. So right there is an admission from Uxbridge Police Chief Laurie, right inside the Uxbridge Selectman's office, that he says to me, and I quote, and this is why I sent this email, is that he says, it got out of control. So obviously, and then plus, what I didn't explain to you yet on camera is when I was interviewed by Uxbridge Police, I asked Chief Laurie about the Hay website, and he threw a fit and wanted me to stop my video recording device, and he demanded Officer Morissette shut off the video. And he kept saying, "This is not about the hate website, it's about you." And I kept saying, "Well, why don't you want to talk on camera about the hate website?" Well, obviously there's the answer. Is that he had knowledge from Warren Police, who owned it, who was in charge, what was being said on there, and so forth. Also from town of Uxbridge, connected to the town of Warren now, for you folks watching this video. I also don't get MIA, which is the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Association, which is the town's general liability insurance company, which also is the same insurance company for Uxbridge, the same insurance company for Warren. I filed 2 small claims lawsuits against the town of Warren employees in Uxbridge District Court. Went to court for the hearing in January of 2017. The law firm, which I won't name, was hired by Warren Board of Selectmen to defend them in a private personal matter, and a certain lawyer woman was there. She started spilling crap about me in general, and then started talking about Uxbridge problems. I have the audio recording of her in a small claims case by a Warren resident. And she admitted that then a Warren Board of Selectmen member ordered another town employee to steal signs of a person who he didn't want winning the Warren Board of Selectmen election, which that refers to 2014. When I was living in Warren, my campaign signs were stolen by Warren Police Department employees so James Gagner could win. I testified in court under oath against her, and she aided in knowingly covering up crimes for the Warren Town Board of Selectmen, in addition to Warren police personnel, and that she lied under oath in East Brookfield Court during the hearing of Brian Corovo. I held up the audio CD, which proved that her conversation in front of a Warren resident to testify that their insurance company, Maya, was covering up crimes in both the towns of Warren and now crimes in the town of Uxbridge, connected to the Uxbridge Police Department. Plus, her Warren clients are actually the suspects in the threats on me from Warren Police and Uxbridge Police. I feel that Maya and or the law firm is in a huge conflict of interest huge ethical issues between Uxbridge and the town of Warren. Just my thoughts, respectfully submitted. Okay. Now I'm going to read you the next page, which is the response from Town Manager David Genero, right here. So you have the date proving when it is. Thursday, February 16th, 2017 at 1:49 p.m. Okay, let's see. Right here. Okay. The town has no voice in the assignment of that law firm through the Maya claims process. When a claim is initiated by the selectmen through our insurer, it is their responsibility to assign a law firm to defend the town. The town has no role in that process. You will be free to dispute the assignment of the law firm if you so choose, or to initiate a lawsuit or case against the town or against the insurance company Maya that requires the insurance coverage to that town. Regards, David A. Genero, Town Manager, Town of Uxbridge. So right there is the admission of Maya law firm connected to the town of Uxbridge and the town of Warren. In addition to, I just explained all the conflicts of interest issues, ethics issues, problems, as you could see, and exposed about the actual assault and battery, exposed that Jim Gagner filed a harassment prevention order Oh, so what I didn't go into was, I don't have it in front of me, but that's okay. I already have the answer. The answer is Uxbridge Police, when I left there, I think at 12:40 p.m. that Friday, James Gagner filed that paperwork in East Brookfield Court of the harassment prevention order on me, I believe at 3 p.m. or 3:10 p.m., somewhere around there. Now, that was after Uxbridge Police notified Chief Spiewakowski of that video recorded interview that I did and says, I didn't say any of that state police stuff. This is really what happened with the state police, and I didn't know the state police report existed, or that state police log entry existed. So when Warren Police was notified then to James Gagner that there's no issues with my license to carry, and I did not threaten James Gagner with a gun, as Chief Spiewakowski told Uxbridge Police that then this issue in court happened. And remember, Uxbridge Police was never privy to what I just exposed just now, that Chief Spiewakowski, which was named by the Uxbridge Chief of Police as faxing him that state police record right here, everything came from Chief Spiewakowski's mouth. And Uxbridge Police just did as they thought was a concern, just to talk to me or whatever. So obviously this video of Uxbridge Police has backfired, because in that video is Chief Laurie freaking out when I want to talk to him about the website. So there's no way in my little pea brain that Uxbridge Police had no bleeping clue who was in charge of that website, that it was James Gagner and Mark Chase. I'm sure Chief Spiewakowski told him who was running the website. I'm sure Uxbridge Police knew all that information, and there's no reason why a statement should be publicly made to my face saying it was all a joke, it all got out of control. Well, if you're not involved, you don't say that. If you are involved, you do say that. And there's also things coming up in the future about why some stuff from my Uxbridge Police personnel file back from fiscal year 2000 and 2001 also appeared on the hate website against me that was run by James Gagner and Mark Chase. So obviously information from my Uxbridge Police personnel file from 17 years ago, well, then it was 15 years ago, was released to a website that's run by Warren employees. So, what else do I have to say? Yeah, so that proves that Uxbridge Police and Warren Police are in criminal collusion with each other. So there's your connection. In all of this, as I said in the first video, was over a dog, because it was mind-boggling that I'm at a Warren Selectmen's meeting in a totally different town, and Chief Spiewakowski makes references. Thank you, Uxbridge Police. Thank you for the canine. Oh, thank you for the advice on the fundraiser to fund our dog. Thank you for this. Thank you for that. And he mentioned Chief Laurie by name. Well, one, Uxbridge Police didn't know I was filming that. And two, Chief Spiewakowski did it minimum 3 times, as I recall. Even at 2 meetings I wasn't at, and I have those videos. So Chief Spiewakowski screwed up by personally naming Chief Laurie from Uxbridge and Uxbridge Police, thanking him for the canine dog. So now that I just explained to you of how screwed up this whole thing is even worse, and James Gagner falsified a police report, Sergeant LaFlower falsified a police report, Sergeant LaFlower committed a crime by getting involved in the investigation of a report when he's already in hot water already with the inappropriate Facebook stuff that he did. So, and then in the video before this one, I just explained to you who was in charge of harassing me while I worked full-time in Warren. It was Sergeant LaFlower and his son, Joseph A. LaFlower. So, but as I said, Uxbridge Police had the blinders on and believed what Chief Spiewakowski told them, and maybe Uxbridge Police is watching this, but obviously my statement to Uxbridge Police is, and I guess I might as well just say it, Chief Laurie, I've told you many times that Warren police should never be trusted, and it was on my instinct to never trust them. I know how sneaky they are. I know how they framed people. They falsely arrested people. The previous Warren police detectives did inappropriate sexual things. There's sexual problems in the town of Warren with the Shepherd Building employee. I won't get into that because that's another video for itself to expose all of that. So there's been undercover up of corruption between the selectmen and Warren police. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I've warned Uxbridge police several times. You didn't listen, and now look where we are. Is now I was telling the truth the whole time, and Chief Spiewakowski just used you to be a slime bag or co-conspirator or criminal collusion person. But I can't help you now because obviously, these records, prove that you're too deep into it. So I tried to warn you, but you didn't listen. So, I mean, there's nothing I can do for anybody for the town of Uxbridge. It is what it is. And now that I just exposed to you the court records, I just proved to all of you that I was assaulted and battered by being headbutted in the face. Uxbridge police hasn't done a bleeping thing for me. Uxbridge police won't do a bleeping thing for me because I've already complained about the town of Warren harassment living in Uxbridge, and Uxbridge police won't even investigate because the problem is they have to investigate the website, which they didn't know because I never told them that I had those records that shows that Mark Chase was the owner of the website and James Gagner was and Mark Chase were the webmasters. So if Uxbridge police took on the investigation, do you think they're going to drive over to Warren and arrest the chief of police and the selectmen and the Warren police detective? No. They just said, "Oh, we're sorry, we can't help you," and they did nothing. You can't go to Warren police because they're the suspects of the website. So here we are in 2017 in July, and you can see now this evidence is coming forward, which is part of my plan. And that's why there's now civil litigation that's happening. There's now going to be criminal stuff happening to the names of the people I mentioned. And, I wasn't the one I'm not the police sergeant that fabricated the police report. I'm not, and I'm sure he's going to have 1,000 excuses like, oh, I didn't know, or whatever, bullshit. I mean, he knew he was covering James Gagner's ass like they were in bed with each other. So, I mean, that obviously it explains it right there. So I guess that's the end of this video. I guess the only other thing I just want to briefly read this piece of paper. So this is a piece of paper I printed off from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts court system. Let's see, I'm going to read this page right here, so I'm going to make this quick. So harassment, so what is harassment, okay? For a harassment prevention order, harassment is defined as 3 or more acts, okay? Each act is aimed at a specific person. Each act was willful and malicious. Each was done with intent to cause fear, intimidation, abuse, or property damage. And then each did, in fact, cause fear, intimidation, abuse, or property damage. Or one act, by force, threat, duress, causes another to involuntarily engage in sexual relations. That doesn't apply to me. Or one act that constitutes one of the following. The only thing that applies to me is criminal stalking, which I don't think there's one act. There's probably hundreds of acts of criminal stalking. Criminal harassment, definitely hundreds of those as well. Not that one. And then the definition of malicious is characterized by cruelty, hostility, or revenge. So obviously my criminal attorney just proved to you in court that the criminal harassment prevention order put on me that I mentioned that I was putting at this Warren CAC meeting that I was putting on James Gagner in the next few days, he jumped the gun and did that to me before I got it done on them. So, and like my attorney said, in court, under oath, the harassment prevention order on me that was false and malicious, and all that Chief Laurie said is when I was served that from Uxbridge Police, I talked to Chief Laurie, the chief from Uxbridge, and said, what is this? And he says, I don't know, Chief Spiewakowski faxed it over. And I said, duh, well, you're the one that you just admitted you called him on the phone and said, oh, we talked to Mr. Baril, there was never any threat with the gun, even though Chief Spiewakowski is the one that told Uxbridge Police that statement. So, excuse me. So right there, Chief Spiewakowski is notified that Uxbridge Police is not doing anything, and that act from James Gagner was revenge for me. So, all right, obviously I need some water. I've talked a long time. I don't know how long this video is going to be. So I ended there. So thank you for watching, and of course there's going to be more videos coming out. There's lots of more exciting information to post to the residents of Warren as an educational tool. Again, to go over this series of you already paid for it but you don't know it, and you know, and then there's obviously going to be stuff happening sometime in the future at some point for civil and criminal stuff going on. So that's all. Thank you for watching, and that's it.